Game 7, Nuggets Thunder. OKC wins 125-93. Oklahoma City finds a way to get through this series. It was a grueling, grinded out, classic games. It felt like everyone on Denver was banged up. In fact, going into this game, we did not anticipate that we would see Aaron Gordon. Aaron Gordon suffered a grade 2 hamstring strain in Game 6. No way he's playing.
No way.
Then minutes before the game, we find out he is playing in the starting lineup.
Yeah.
I know Denver lost, but first team all dog. Like a grade 2 strain is a partial tear.
Well, how he didn't even look like okay.
He moved funny.
Yeah. Well, I'll talk about we'll talk about all of that. But I guess my point being, you didn't see it on his face. You didn't see him like you know in his body language. You saw like, if I'm going to go out there with my muscles torn apart, I'm going to be playing. I'm going to be playing the right way as much as I can to my ability. And you saw it from the start, the way that he would jump off of the other leg and try and tip the ball out on rebounds, but still grabbing rebounds. And then coming down in transition, knocking down a 3. Like, could he just be that spot up shooter in this game? And, he ended up only having that 1 3 that he was left open on. 8 points, but 24 minutes. He did everything he could.
11 rebounds. He had 4 offensive rebounds.
11 rebounds. He did everything he could with his body in this game. And I thought the way that the Nuggets came out, maybe they were inspired by him as well. And they punched first, but then OKC punched back and never looked back.
Yeah, they knocked him out.
It
was a knock
them out.
Like by halftime, you went, ugh.
Yep. And
Good
then
luck
start of the
clawing out
third,
this.
it was like done.
Yeah, it's amazing that Gordon played through that. And I just think about what he has had to deal with, like personally this year with the loss of his brother. Like,
So sad.
I can't even like fathom that,
No.
right? His brother died in the car accident and trying to navigate that. Then this year he had to deal with like a calf injury that limited him at times, even in the postseason, in that Clippers series. And then this injury.
Well, and you talk about all that as just even for him individually, but then dealing with a coaching change, even like what already your
insane.
mind is just everywhere. And then you're dealing with even more put on you and this team. And so, for him to fight the way that he did. But my favorite thing about Aaron Gordon wasn't just this series, it was this postseason. The amount of like special games that he had, special
the game
clutch
winner
plays
against OKC, against the Clippers.
Fantastic.
No, he did everything in his power. And that's the thing, like Denver loses this series, but it just felt like there are times they look dead in the Clipper series early on. Where I'm like, they don't have it this year.
Yeah.
And there was a tremendous amount of fight. Trying to overcome the Porter injury too. He's dealt with the shoulder thing the entire playoffs. At one point, looking like he had like a shoulder pad on his shoulder. Went with the tape tonight. Jokic was special in moments, and even today, you just think about the attention he drew. We'll talk about the good stuff from OKC because there was plenty. But I just look at Denver, and I thought the fight was there for a team to me that was flawed. But they have the best player in the game, Nikola Jokic, and he showed it so many times throughout. To get this team to this point, I just don't think there are many teams that could have got through some of the things that Denver got through this year, from the injuries, a coaching change, like 3 games to go, and it's just challenging.
Well, and how about also being a team that was capable of getting this deep and not even having depth, not having the bench that they needed to have to achieve certain things. And that just goes to show not only how incredibly dominant that someone like Nikola Jokic is as an individual and how he makes so many people better, but how I felt like even some of the other guys were playing better basketball, elevated their games to wherever they could through their injuries. I mean, you mentioned Michael Porter Jr., and then you think about Jamal Murray over the years, like he always has like a little bit of a nick here and there. And then Aaron Gordon, we already mentioned all of his as well. So it was pretty crazy that they were able to get there, but they kept just staying alive and they kept just playing basketball the right way pretty much until mostly today.
Christian Brown was also really good in this game. He had 19 points, super aggressive in 32 minutes, but Denver gets clapped. And what a turnaround this game was, because there was a 1-point game with like 3-ish minutes to go in the first half. OKC clawed back from being down early, They're down double digits, fight back, and they're doing it with their pressure, their aggression defensively, rebounding well, and getting out and pushing.
Yeah.
And they absolutely destroyed Denver in the paint. I thought they handled Denver's zone much better in this game, finding the gaps. And I think part of that is like going back to Gordon is like him not being able to move like Aaron Gordon impacted things. Like it forced David Adelman to put out some different types of lineups.
Yeah.
And maybe extend minutes that maybe he wouldn't have. I know I'm going a lot of different directions here, but I remembered one more thing.
Yeah.
I hated how they started the second quarter. No Jokic, no Murray, and no Porter to start the second quarter. And it felt like the end of the first was a little bit of a push by OKC. Then they started taking off. And it felt like, to me, in a game 7, you can't make that move.
No. And like you have to have either at least one of your guys on, some of your guys on at all times in that case, because there is no tomorrow and you can rest tomorrow. And that push, not only did it help them with the actual score, but you saw the way that the crowd got into it. It was a fantastic crowd throughout the entire thing, even when they were down. But I just felt like that was the moment. It was like momentum shifter. And then they called that timeout. And then even out of the timeout, after they subbed Jokic back in and maybe Murray as well, it was like they still started going in a different direction. OKC picked up their perimeter defense times 10, steals galore. Jalen Williams had probably like 6 quick points in transition in the fast break.
Remember, Jalen Williams is being guarded by who a lot in this series? Aaron Gordon, and that wasn't the case in this one. I have a really random question for you, Morgan.
Of course you do.
When I start talking about a game, and I'm like, all right, it was this, and I zig this way and zag back that way. What's going through your mind?
Well, I love it. Sometimes, though, what I do, because I have like a type A personality, I go, ooh, I don't want to forget what I wanted to say about that one topic or another topic. And guess what I do back? I just zigzag back to wherever.
And then I'm like, why are you zigging and zagging?
Yeah, and then you yell at me later and you're like, that's not cool.
I can do it, you can't.
Yeah. And so what we're going to do, what we're going to learn today is that we both can do it, okay?
All right.
This is a team effort. And here's the thing, it's Sunday. We're shooting the shit about this game, having fun. So please, by all means, go everywhere with it.
So we mentioned the close. It was 42-41 with 3:10 to go.
Okay.
Oklahoma City closes the first half on an 18-5 run.
Damn.
To do a full-on outlook of this.
Okay. Good.
Remember, 42-41.
Yeah. The
rest of the game, Oklahoma City outscored Denver by a lot.
Okay.
It's on this page. I'm like, looking at my notes. I have like 3 pages of notes. I'm like, okay, which page is it? It's 42-41 OKC with 3:10 to go. 83-52 the rest of the game.
Whoa.
One thing that Oklahoma City did today that was interesting, we didn't see a lot of the big Jalen Williams.
Yeah.
Who showed in this series at times like to battle Jokic to the best of his ability, can space the floor. Dagnall didn't play him a lot. They decided to go smaller. In fact, Hardenstein didn't start the second half of this game.
And
they started Caruso. Let's start with Alex Caruso. What impressed you with his ability? I can't believe I'm saying this in a game 7. His ability to defend Nikola Jokic in a game 7. Alex Caruso.
It was incredible. He was relentless. He was physical. I think there were so many times where you could absolutely call a foul, but here's my favorite part. When you set the tone right away, and this goes for any player out there, if you set the tone right away, the officiating crew, especially in the postseason, is not going to call every single time that you do something that should be deemed a foul. And I know in a lot of ways it's like, well, that's unfair, but it's like, no, did it actually alter a pass getting to him? Did it alter the shot necessarily? And as long as it's just altering, the way that someone maybe is getting pushed off the high post or where they want to position themselves, then I'm all good with that physicality. I hated playing people like that. It's the worst thing in the world. It's annoying as shit. You know it even in pickup basketball. It's like, we're playing pickup here. What the shit are you doing? But in a game 7, when there's no tomorrow, I loved every moment of it. And I just thought that pressure alone was one of the biggest game changers. And going off of that, though, really quick, because I wanted to look at his stat line coming off the bench. Yep, only 11 points, 3 assists. And Doris Burke mentioned this even in this game. She was like, if you were going to look at his stat line right now and you'd be like, okay, what's going on? No, he's been one of the most impactful players on the floor, and that's exactly what he did with that.
And I know plus minus, especially in a single game, doesn't mean much. He was a team high plus 40 in his minutes, his 25 minutes. Yeah, I think that physicality, I got to be honest, there's stuff when I watch, I don't know what you do, okay? Because even Doris was mentioning, like, hey, some of the space the offensive players weren't getting. I'm like, yeah, but we can't, like, all of a sudden, it's too hard to guard these guys in general, right? These talented guys.
Sure.
But going back to the Jokic-Caruso thing, I get what you're saying. The physicality, setting the tone early can dictate things maybe from the officials. But there's sometimes, as if you're big in this league and you're being defended by a smaller guy, it's got to be so irritating because they beat the fuck out of you.
Yeah.
And there's no calls.
Yep.
I mean, they're showing replays of Caruso and like, oh, what great defense. And I'm like, yes. As someone who loves defense, yes. But like, he is grabbing his hip. He is kind of doing
palm
things. Open. Grabbing the hip slightly, and it's not a full-on like tug, but it's enough to get someone like Jokic off balance a little bit, and it's the way you should play.
Yes,
but I'm just saying it's a challenge because you look at Jokic after games, and so he's
scratches.
I'm like,
blood.
Did someone take a knife out and cut him
at one point? Yes,
I mean, they beat the shit out of him.
Yeah, no, I understand that, and I think too when obviously the team that I root for the Sacramento Kings. And when I see this go down in a Sacramento Kings game, there are times where I flip-flop on that and I go, oh my God, that took so-and-so completely out of their game and blah, blah, blah. And like, if it's a foul, it's a foul. All those things.
Yep.
Absolutely do I do that. But then when you do get to kind of step away and just like not be a fan of anything but basketball, there's this different level of appreciation for it. At the same time, I can only imagine how the Denver Nuggets fans are feeling today and being like, when are we going to call that a foul? So I get all of the sides.
And with that said, Jokic still had 20 points, 9 rebounds, 7 assists
Insane.
on 5 of 9 shooting, 9 of 11 at the free throw line, but he did have 5 turnovers, and that was just the relentlessness. I felt like that really shifted at the end of was that the second quarter? Yeah, when you had the steals by Caruso and Williams, and the crowd just going crazy.
And it didn't stop.
It was amazing. And I think that's one thing you've noticed more so is like, I think some of the better teams, Oklahoma City, Boston, when they are in it, they're fine conceding, like putting a smaller guy on your big, because a lot of times what happens is the teams are going to force feed in that situation.
Yep.
The big's getting beat up and frustrated. So therefore the big is maybe being a little too aggressive. There's offensive fouls, there's forces, there's just tough shots out of it. And for an Oklahoma City team that has so many of those guys who have the strength and the pursuit of the ball, like they can do that shit. It's great.
The thing that we talked about to each other when this was happening, and Mark Dagnall went with Alex Caruso starting in that second half over Hartenstein. We just love that he's coaching his team and he's doing the right thing. There's so many teams, players, egos, all these different times where you go, oh, player's really going to screw with this guy's confidence. Oh, this is going to happen. This is going to happen. I hate that shit so much. I go like, put on your big boy pants, right? You know, like do something that's better for the team. Screw your ego right now. And there's so many teams that can't do that because of just where the NBA has gone, and coaches have to find that balance of like not pissing someone off, but also trying to coach the right way. When you gain the respect of your front office, your players, and everything else, and winning helps. And
togetherness, it's special.
It's so special when you're able to make those adjustments, do those changes, and guess what it does? It leads to more winning basketball.
Yeah, it's a complete buy-in from that group. And Oklahoma City, let's not act like they were healthy all year. Right, Caruso missed a lot of games this year, and they were careful with him coming back.
Chet
Hartenstein missed a lot of games. Chet, to your point, so they've had to mix and match different lineups, and they've had to try some different things. So yeah, to your point, I admire that Dagnall in a game 7. It's like, no, we're trying to win the game, and Caruso closed well in the second quarter. He did some great things.
Yep,
Hartenstein, you didn't do anything wrong, but we need to win this game.
Yep.
And that's the type of coaching that I think is needed in game 7. it's a fine line too, right? Because you want to trust certain guys, but it's also like, no, we're trying to win a game. And I just witnessed this stretch of really good basketball that's not fluky.
Yeah.
We need to go with this right now and close the door. And that's what they did. They kept it going into the third quarter.
And you said needed in a game 7. I think it's needed all throughout, even a regular season.
Fair.
Even with some of these bad teams, I say bad teams, but like the Sacramento Kings too many times were mid throughout their entire season this year, where it's just like, no, you got to be able to try things, but there's just too much shit going on. But going back to it being a game 7, one of the stats that they showed as we went into tip-off was all the players with their game 7 experiences.
Yeah.
And it was like Jamal Murray with 6 game 7s under his belt, Jokic, same, like all these. And then you go to OKC side and there's like one or two over here on this side. And I remember when the game started, I felt like, whoa, those stats meant something because the experience is showing right away, like how these guys prepared for this game, blah, blah, blah. But then once it turned,
they settled down.
Yeah.
I don't know what was said in the timeout. I don't know if they needed to feel out what a game 7 felt like, but the approach after that, those early struggles was all right. Some of the staggering numbers in this game, the points off turnovers, 37-7, plus 30 in favor of OKC in this game. Denver had 23 turnovers in this game. That turned into 37 points. Oklahoma City only had 10 turnovers. Looking at some of the turnovers numbers, Gordon with 4, Jokic with 5, Westbrook 4 in just 22 minutes. Some brutal numbers. Strother, he was kind of the game 6 hero. Wasn't the case today. He had some tough turnovers as well. And Oklahoma City this was almost like, seeing them do this in a game 7 was very impressive because it's stuff that they did in the regular season. They would get down early and then they would turn it on and run away with it. And throughout this series, there have been moments people questioned them and like, are they ready for this moment? They messed this up, or Dagnall did this, or what's SGA doing here? There was growth in this. And sometimes, especially with a young team like Oklahoma City that has really been on this fast track the last couple of years. They go from play-in to last year, the second round, and down to the conference finals. Sometimes the only way to get through some of this shit is just through experience.
Absolutely.
And just, okay, now I know what that's like. And you mentioned it, Denver had all this experience. OKC did not, but they were prepared for this moment. And they took advantage of some of course, the injuries as well, but they played with a force that was needed.
And that force really did start on the defensive end, and the disruption into so many of those turnovers you just mentioned for the Denver Nuggets. Those 23 turnovers. I mean, it was ugly at times because they were just all up in your face, getting physical with you.
16 steals for Oklahoma City.
Dude, they treated it so much like it was a game 7. And sure, once the momentum was in their hand, they capitalized on it. And I remember when it became a 20-point game, I was like, God, there's still like a lot of the third quarter left. There's a lot of time left. Let's see how this goes. They commanded it. They knew what they wanted to do. And then Denver waved the white flag around that 9-minute, 10-minute mark or whatever in the fourth. Like they waved it early. And then OKC went with their second unit as well.
We should note that Morgan is the type that like...
Yes, I know where you're going. And it's yes.
If you're up 30 with 7 to play, she's like, no, it's not over yet.
Bro.
You would be like Tom Thibodeau. You'd be playing your guys. Like, why are you playing Cats still? You're up 40 and there's 9 to play.
And look who's in the Eastern Conference Finals, okay? Come on. No, and you are the one that said in these playoffs, NBA playoffs, when you turned off the game one time or something, or like you walked away or something, and you're
in
like,
this series, I did it.
Okay. Oh, in this series you did it, but you also did it like in a Warriors-Wolves game or something, and you're just like, it just goes to show. Oh, in a Knicks game it happened as well. Like it happens, dude. It happens, and you don't want to be the one that misses out.
With Pacers, Cavs. It happened for Knicks, Celtics, and it happened for this series where I'm like, the game's all right. I could switch to the next game. You know, because they overlap.
I always believe.
Also, I am so glad we're done with the overlapping games. I hated.
That
you know
was
what
bullshit.
I do? Delay the games. Delay the games. I don't want the next game to start until the other one's over because you're putting me in a position to change the channel.
Oh, so
I don't like
angry.
it.
And then they go, oh, doesn't your TV just double box? And it's like, I can't focus on two games. It's like, that's more like white noise. When you have two games on, when people do that, and it's like football, you can do that because the game's slow. It stops. And then you can watch the other game. And then you can watch the other touchdown. And then you go here. But basketball, it's like, holy shit, what am I even watching?
Shout out to the people
Rant.
watching us live right now on
Oh,
this
yeah.
Sunday. Make sure to hit the thumbs up and subscribe. A couple of comments before we continue on. What's up, Posey, who says, I hope for a Wolves-Pacers finals. I don't want OKC in their process to be proven right, and Cat doesn't deserve glory. Damn.
That's such a-
Well, by the way, what's wrong with OKC's process? It's not like they tanked for 20 years. They made a great trade to get SGA, and then they tanked a little bit during COVID. Fine, whatever. Remember, with SGA, Chris Paul, they made the playoffs that year.
Yeah.
No, I have no I like how they built the team, right? And then they drafted well. You draft Chet, and then you get Jalen Williams later. You make some smart trades, getting Caruso and Hartenstein. I have no problem with how they built.
I'm cool with all the teams right now, but I definitely have like my heart, my brain
Okay,
for something.
we'll go over that.
Okay.
Steven says, the first thing that comes to mind when I watch Oklahoma City is that, good grief, I'm sure glad I didn't have to watch the Kings lose by 50 to them 4 times this postseason.
I said that. I said that too. When it was going to be, it's that 1-8 matchup? Yeah. And I remember it was against Memphis, and I was like, dudes, aren't you kind of glad though this isn't like, we don't have to talk about this after the game? He's like, no, because I want the experience for these guys. And all I'm thinking is like, aren't the Kings probably going to make a lot of changes too?
It was for the young guys I mentioned, Keon, Keegan. And
Sorry.
points in the paint was a big problem for Kings Thunder, remember?
Yeah.
In this game, OKC 64 to 42 points in the paint too.
Damn.
They got them on second chance points 19 to 14. Fast break points 27 to 14.
That
Just
one.
pure and utter domination. Also, they rebounded pretty well in this game. So now OKC advances to take on Minnesota.
I'm excited.
I do want to ask you this. What's next for Denver?
Oh,
Just
okay.
real fast.
Sure. Before I get excited.
I think when you've got Jokic, you're going to have a chance.
Okay. With anything. Yeah, duh.
He's the best in the game.
Agreed.
Is David Adelman going to be the coach? I feel like
There's
probably.
a possibility.
Yeah, I
Hey,
mean,
with the trend that's going right now, the interim coaches
Yeah.
are all getting the job.
I think David Adelman showed enough. I didn't think he was too big for the moment. Like, I know everyone shares a clip of Jokic, like at one point, like coaching the team and telling them to sub. But I'm like, yeah, but this is Jokic. He is like
As
a
he
coach
should.
on the floor. Like, yes, I have no problem with that. I just also, from a Kings perspective, love Adelman. I'm like, man, Rick was so great. It'd be cool for his son to get this opportunity.
That's why. That's our real reason why.
So I like that. But looking at their contract situation, it's not pretty.
Okay.
Morgan.
Okay. This is what I wanted to know.
Okay, so Jamal Murray's extension kicks in, and that's just one you look at and you go, man, what's that going to look like in years to come?
Ooh.
Yeah. You just made the face. Next year, he makes 50.4. Season after that, 54.4, 58.4, and then the final year, 28-29, 62.5.
Can I just think if anyone's making 60 plus million a year, you should be like saving the world. You know?
Okay, well, that's a different argument.
I know. And I just laugh because it is so crazy seeing these contracts now. And again, the greats, I get it. They deserve all of it. But sometimes, like, it is insane when you really put the dollars on it. You're like, holy shit.
So we go over Murray's contract. Porter, he's at 38 next year, 38.3. And then the final year is 40. So it's not like a long-term thing. And then Aaron Gordon is at 22. It jumps to 31, 34, and then an option for 37. So those are like their core guys. You have to imagine Porter is gone this offseason. If they're going to tinker anything. I mean, if you're Denver, are you just trying to run it back around them? We don't know what their front office is going to look like. There's just a lot of big-time questions. And I think the reality, too, is like, you know, Denver is probably in a way looking at this going, and I know this thinking may be dangerous.
Okay. Let's hear
But
it.
from an optimistic standpoint,
Love this.
if you're the Nuggets leadership, you're going, Gordon was hurt. He had a calf thing, a hamstring thing. Porter's playing with one good shoulder.
Uh-huh.
The depth wasn't where it needed to be, hence why we made the GM change to begin with.
Yep.
David Allen took over tough circumstances, handled himself well, and if Gordon doesn't get hurt in Game 6, you never know like what today looks like. Like we're not that far because we have Jokic.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying you just run it back. I think you do have to tinker and try to figure out ways. But that's a challenge, right? When you're in this new salary cap world with the aprons of how do you tinker and get better?
It's tough because for them not having a complete roster to get as deep as they did under all the other health circumstances, coaching, all the things, it is impressive.
Yep.
It just goes to show how great Nikola Jokic is. And because he is that great, you gotta capitalize on it. You gotta find out any damn way to make sure you are trading, getting whatever you need to put around him while he still is going to give you any type of chance to have that championship window.
It doesn't feel like Jamal Murray's deal would be that movable. I think the most intriguing one maybe for teams would be Porter because you don't want to move Gordon. Gordon's still a good deal.
Mm-hmm.
And that's probably the best way to try to
just crazy
tweak some things. But yeah, it's going to be interesting. I mean, I think the big thing about the playoffs, and maybe it's like this every year, and I'm being a prisoner of the moment, but Zach Lowe said something on his podcast that stuck with me, is it seems like in recent years, and I'm paraphrasing, that the healthiest teams are the ones in it at the end. And it's hard to discount that, right? You look at the Boston Celtics out. Jason Tatum goes down.
Yeah.
We find out that Jaylen Brown was playing with a torn meniscus.
Jeez.
And so Tatum ruptured Achilles. Porzingis, like whatever. I don't know what the hell's going on, right?
I know.
So that.
Okay.
Cleveland. You had Hunter was banged up. Garland, Mobley.
Yep.
Like they had Donovan Mitchell ends up getting hurt,
Yep.
right? Okay. They're out. This series, Denver, banged up. Golden State, Jimmy gets hurt at one point. Steph misses the rest of the series after game one. So here we are, and it's like, oh, OKC, everyone's pretty healthy.
Yeah.
Minnesota, yeah. The Knicks, I know OG's dealt with something. I feel like he's always on the cusp. And the Pacers, the healthiest teams are there at the end.
But you know what's crazy when you look at the healthiest teams here at the end? You look at the New York Knicks. It's not like they were big into time management.
Well, and last year at this time, they were banged up, right? Brunson, OG gets hurt.
And everyone blamed it on that. And so I think, and I'm not acting like just because of this one time that they're not injured and they are actually here, that's not the case. But I just sometimes think load management is not necessarily the right thing that we're looking at. I think in a lot of ways, some of these guys that can condition and go, can end up being better and healthier toward the end. Sure, there's going to be those freak accidents with Tatum, with even Steph Curry, with Aaron Gordon. Like that's sports. Like that's going to happen in this very physical game that you put a lot on your body for. But at the same time, yeah, it's very true. When it comes to health, you look at Tyrese is healthy and playing his best basketball. And now he's in the Eastern Conference Finals.
And it also just goes to show you shit changes fast in this league, and championship windows can open and close just like that.
Do that again?
Boston's.
Whoa.
You look at Boston now, like Tatum's going to be missing the entire year next year. They've got new ownership. All of a sudden you're watching Drew Holiday, and like a year ago, you're like, oh my God, this guy is everything. Now, like, oh God, is he getting old? But like, he's still good. But it's like, okay, new ownership. The aprons that we were just talking about. Porzingis' future. Horford, like, is 37, 38 years old. People thought they were going back to back, and now they're going into next year going, are they going to blow some of this up, take like a bad year, and then kind of, once Tatum's back, they'll have a good draft pick and just kind of see what it looks like. I don't know. It's just intriguing to see where they go and where Golden State goes and Denver. It changes really fast. With Wolves Thunder, it's a fascinating series. I just don't feel like the Wolves have completely been tested. I don't think the Lakers were really good. And I didn't walk away from the Warriors series super impressed with him, especially considering you didn't have Steph Curry for most of that series.
Sure.
It felt like more of a grind than it needed to be. But I also think they're capable of playing better than they played in the playoffs.
I agree with that.
They have gotten some additional rest. I just wonder if they're able to deal with the perimeter pressure that Oklahoma City can put on, just with the amount of guys and coverages that they could throw at Anthony Edwards. Can Minnesota handle that?
It's not even about if McDaniels and other guys aren't making their shots. Like, what are they going to look like? It's not even about that. It's not about Ant just taking over. It's about them playing like a team. And I feel like when they did play, it was never consistent when they would play like a team, right? But when they did, it was beautiful basketball. Like people were moving, things were happening. I mean, Rudy Gobert was playing his role of rebounder, cleaning things up, putting it back up, being aggressive in that role. And his shot selection is so much better in those situations. Obviously, Mike Conley's making his outside shots while being able to take it in and still get those floaters and one, like you see those things happen and it flows so much better when they do play like that type of team. I think this perimeter pressure from OKC is going to disrupt so much of that when it does, what's their answer?
Yeah, and Julius Randle has been phenomenal in the playoffs. I think you can make the case like he's probably been Minnesota's most consistent and best player in the playoffs.
Yeah.
Not to take anything away from Ant.
Not at all.
I love Ant. But Julius, he's had his own postseason demons in years past, and he's performed well. And I think he's also been, for the most part, he's limited his mistakes because he can bring some chaos sometimes. He's a guy that I think is the X factor in this. I think they have proven that they can maybe get through things when Ant is maybe off of his game a little bit, maybe not being efficient, because Anthony Edwards has made better decisions dealing with double teams. I think Oklahoma City just presents so many different looks and has so many different guys that will limit him in some ways. And so you're going to need Julius Randle to play awesome and mistake-free. To me, it's all about the others. And the example we saw today, like all the turnovers that Oklahoma City forced, they thrive off that shit. And it's what they do all the time. Like when you've got Lou Dort, who could be physical, he'll bump you, he can get turnovers, right? You've got Jalen Williams' ability to guard, and he can score.
Yeah.
And then you add someone like Caruso, who every time he comes into the game, it feels like there's an energy shift. We haven't even mentioned some of the other guys.
Yeah.
And so I don't know. I just give Oklahoma City the edge. It's like, I'm not trying to discount Minnesota, because I think when they're at their peak powers, when the ball is moving, when Ant's knocking down shots and the supporting cast is there, they look like they can beat anybody.
Yeah.
But this is going to be by far their toughest challenge.
But I think also when we saw, like, just to be a little bit of a prisoner of the moment of OKC in this last series against Denver, it was like when they weren't locked in and acting like the number one team in the West, you saw it. You saw them let up, and a team, being the Denver Nuggets, would capitalize on them getting soft for a second, or just not being locked in defensively, or when they're missing their shots. They never look down. Like they always look professional out there and everything, but then they turn to hero basketball. SGA, can you get us a basket? Like those times happen with OKC. And if you're Minnesota and any of those times happen, because I don't feel like Minnesota's defense is necessarily going to create all of that against OKC, but when it happens with OKC, you have to make sure you're capitalizing on it, pushing it in the fast break, playing fast, doing all the little things perfectly.
Yeah, Dante DiVincenzo had a pretty quiet series too. He hasn't been shooting the ball efficiently. So he's a guy that, I think we saw it last year in the playoffs too for the Knicks, where you're like, okay, he's not afraid of taking big shots, but he has that Caruso-like energy to his game, I think, especially defensively. So can he be a big factor? McDaniels, to your point, his length can definitely bug guys. His problem has been getting into foul trouble at times. When he could stay on the floor and not get in foul trouble, Minnesota is a different team. And then Gobert's ability to alter shots is obviously very impactful, right? So I'm giving OKC the edge. I would say OKC in 6 if I was making a prediction. I'm not going to ask Morgan to make one because she never does. She's a coward.
Thank you.
Those aren't my words.
Whose
Those are the
words?
words of viewers across the world.
Okay. Oh,
but
wow.
do you give
Thank
OKC the edge? Where are you leaning? Who do you think?
Yeah, if I'm leaning right now, because I'm being prisoner of the moment of what I just saw with OKC, but also of what I just saw with the Wolves. Like what I thought that they should have given it to the Warriors as soon as Steph went down.
Yeah.
And it just didn't feel like that in any of the games.
And it almost feels opposite. Like Minnesota has the ability, they look like they get up big and then they let off.
Yeah.
Where OKC maybe gets down a little bit and then they turn it on.
And they don't stop.
Just go through the finish line. They run through it. I hope it's a great series because I just think from just Anthony Edwards and this test, if there's anyone that can maybe handle a test like this, and it's really good for him too as a young player, it's him. He has the utmost confidence. You know, he's looking at this series going, dude, I went through LeBron and Luka and Jimmy, playoff Jimmy's here and Steph. I did it. Now OKC, I could do this.
Yeah, I'm sure. I never doubt his confidence.
Yeah,
that's for
I love
sure.
the confidence. So I'm excited to see this series. Bring on the conference finals.
Yes.